Hello, and welcome to After the Show. I am your host, Crystal Vilkitis, and it is our first birthday, like today, officially March 6th, a year ago, 2023. I launched Rooted in Retail, and here we are, 1 year later. We celebrated 25,000 downloads last week. We are 4 members away from 1,000 members in our Facebook group, and people are loving the show. Most importantly, they're getting a lot of value out of it. For example, I'm going to share with you some of that value from one of our listeners, the notes that she's been taking and what she's taking away from it. I love that she shared. So I'll share that a little bit later in today's episode. But if you are new here and you are not live streaming with us, I would love for you to live stream with us. We usually do after the show on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain. Today is a Wednesday. I was traveling yesterday. I flew in this morning. Man, my arms are tired. I did it. I was getting ready for this and I'm like, am I going to tell that cheesy dad joke? Um, and said, no, I wasn't going to do it. And then I did it. Anyways, I am a little tired from flying in this morning, but we had to move it to Wednesday since I was traveling. Next week, I'm also traveling. So it's also going to be on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Mountain. We're sticking to the same time, just different day. So I'd love to see you there. If you're not in our Facebook group, join the group. This is where all the conversations are happening. There's a lot of great conversations that are happening, and I'm going to talk about a couple of those today. If you are live with me here, then feel free to say hello. And if you are not live, but you're watching the replay in the Facebook group, then chat in replay because I always like to say hi to you and love to see who's watching those replays. See, we're live here. So I am so excited about this week's episode because if you already listened, then it was a little different format. And if you haven't listened, you're going to want to listen because we covered so much in this episode. The different format was that I asked people, listeners, to submit a question that I would answer on the show. We had 6 people and I answered everybody's questions. It was a lot. There was a lot of tips, a lot of content that we went over in that one episode. And as I was halfway filming, I was like, should I split this into a part 2? And I was like, nope, we're going for it because it's our 1-year anniversary and we're giving lots of tips and value. And the questions were just so good. So if you haven't listened to this episode yet, there's a solid chance you're going to want to do so with some notes. Like either if you're putting notes on your phone, that's what I often do when I'm listening to podcasts and I'm on the go. Maybe you could listen to this one in the car or exercising, but you might want to listen to it again because there's so much covered. I listened to it this morning on my airplane ride and I like to give a lot of ideas and try to dissect these questions and be as helpful as possible. And at one point I was like, oh, I kind of wish I was taking notes. Like if I was the retailer listening to this answer, I would need to be taking notes. There's a lot covered. So be sure that you do that and share this episode with anybody that you feel like needs that help, needs that support, maybe is struggling with something else that somebody mentioned in this week's episode, because there's some really great stuff in there. Now, one of the ideas that we talked about is having doing pop-ups in your store. It's a way for, we definitely talked about events on this episode. We've talked about event marketing in the past, but having pop-ups and having people that are popping up in your store selling a different type of product and having it or service and having it be a draw to come into your store. And we posted in the Facebook group, this is another reason why you should be over there. We post some different graphics and questions in there. And one of them was about pop-ups. I was asking, do you do pop-ups? And we've kind of got a viral thread going. So I want to share some of those answers in here. I'm not going to read them all. You could go over in the group, read them all because our listeners are generous. They talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they do it. And if you have any questions for any of the retailers that are sharing in there, comment on their post and ask them like, how did you do that? Or what were the results on that? We have a very open, amazing community here at Rooted in Retail. These are retailers who are willing to help and they're rooting for your success as well. So go check out those full answers. But shout out Erin Beal Link, who Erin is one of our top contributors in there. She talked about how she's done book signings with local authors as a pop-up event in her store. Shandy Hollyman was talking about how she's done a workshop with a catered lunch. So she had a guest who did a workshop, catered lunch, $800 in sales from that workshop in product sales, like not ticket sales to this workshop, like product sales because she was hosting this in her store. So Shandy, awesome. That's so great. And I know you shared some additional things in there too about results you're seeing. Justine Bishop talked about fresh bouquets. They've got some friends who have fresh flower farm. They do bouquets. And I love her honesty. She's like, sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. I love the idea of doing flowers, especially around holidays, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. I also feel like if it's a really like we're gonna have a really nice weekend and people are out and about, having really beautiful bouquets for the springtime, summertime, fall, winter bouquets, like just having some of that seasonality throughout is great. So I loved the idea of bouquets. Linda Ramsey Moore, who is one of our guests who asked a question on the this week's episode, she also shared that they do a call out for the customers who are also makers. They love spotlighting their customers who are makers and creators. And they've also had a Tupperware rep come in and work with their customers and create an event. Love those ideas. I really love the idea of highlighting and spotlighting your customers who they have things to sell or things to share. It could be educational, it could be hands-on like the workshop. Such great ideas. So thank you to those of you who are participating in that feed. If you're doing some cool pop-ups, go over to the Rooted in Retail Facebook group, find that graphic about pop-ups and share what you're doing. And again, you can ask these ladies for more details on their events. It's a very collaborative event, so pretty cool. All right, so then back to my notes here. Now, in this week's episode, I talked a lot about other forms of marketing, not just social media. One of the questions was around that, how can I be connecting my in-person audience to my online audience and what can I do outside of the newspaper or outside of social media? And there's just so much you can do with marketing, as you probably heard from this week's episode. I gave a lot of different ideas and I want to know. I really, really, really want to know this. So if you're listening live, hello, welcome. And if you're listening to the replay or you're doing this through a podcast app, if you could go into the Facebook group and if you could tell us what is working best for you now, because I think we all want to know what form of marketing is working for you best to drive people into the store. I'm not going to say from a sales perspective. I'm looking for foot traffic. If you want to share what's working best for sales as well, that's great. But I do view marketing and sales differently because marketing, that's more of the brand awareness, building the relationship and driving them into your store. The actual transaction comes from sales. And that's where when we have a really great salesperson or a really strong offer or an irresistible offer. And so those are two different things with marketing and sales. But I want to know, like, what is your number one foot traffic driver? Is it social media? And if it is, what site? Is it Instagram, TikTok, Facebook? Are you running ads? Are you doing live streams? Like, what's working for you? Maybe it's email. I talked a lot about email in this week's episode. Billboards, print design. I actually was at an event a couple weeks ago, and one of the attendees was talking about how she's taking out local billboards. She actually has a national brand, but she is taking out billboards because they're so cost effective right now. So it might be something worth you exploring in your area if you're really trying to connect. What billboards used to be so expensive. In fact, one of my very first jobs out of college, I was working at Chili's, but then I got an internship at a company called Red Rocket Media Group. And it was a marketing company. And we sold billboards. We designed billboards and we actually worked with the company that owned the billboards and we would be media buyers and place our ads on the billboards. And I remember they were just so expensive. And now it just seems like you can find some really affordable options. Of course, this depends on where you live. But I think with either if you're very creative, you've got a strong slogan, you've got something you're known for, which we really talk a lot about on this show, And you could put that on a billboard, or you need ChatGPT to write you something super clever. Or Gemini. I was just at a conference this week and we were talking about AI, and oh my goodness, the AI tools. Side note from the AI tools, if you're going to evolve, my AI presentation on day 2, just you wait. Just you wait. I cannot wait to share what is going on in the AI world. The advancements, the things you can do. I mean, there is some next level stuff that I'm going to be teaching at Evolve. And that's what we do there. We evolve, right? We adapt, we change, we understand what tools and strategies we need to be using. And I'm going to share some pretty epic, kind of mind blowing stuff. So if you don't have your ticket, we still have tickets. We'll link to it, crystalmediaco.com/evolve. But oh my gosh, I can't wait to share. Okay, back to our billboards here. So using AI you could create something very catchy, but keep in mind it needs to be short, sweet, easy to read from the road, easy to click, needs to connect to your brand. Ideally, give them that reason for them to be like, I have to go to this store. Some reminders of things that they're going to need or why they need it. And humor can work really well, or pulling at the heartstrings. And so, what is working well for you? Are you doing billboards, email, texting, loyalty programs? How are you driving traffic into your store? I want to know. And then let me peek over here in our live. If you're here live with me, I see a couple of you, and I know my team is here. But otherwise, reminder, chat it, replay if you're listening to the replay, because I want to see you here. Okay. The next thing is, I talked about the AI aspect and what's working. Yeah, awesome. I'm nailing my notes here. Remember how I said I was a little tired? I feel like I'm a little rusty today from the travels. But I didn't want to miss after the show. Like, I love doing this with you. So we're here. Final thing. This is a shorter episode today. The final thing that I want to share with you, because this week is our 1 year and we are reminiscing, I posted in the Facebook group asking, what's your favorite episode or favorite guest? And I answered saying this week's episode was pretty epic for me. Like, I love every single guest I've had on the show. There has not been one bad guest. Everybody brings it. That is intentional. Our guests are hand selected. Um, and I love doing all of those episodes, but just doing this call-in show was really fun for me, and I thought it was really nice to hear other people's answers. So I really do want your feedback on that as well. If you liked that format, leave a review. If you listen on Apple, you can leave a review. If you listen on Spotify, you could ask a question. That's how they kind of do the engagement there, is the Q&A. Or you could go to the Facebook group, tell me if you like this episode, this format. So that was my fave. But Kelsey Ray Bradford posted in the group. Kelsey, if you're listening to this, shout out. You are awesome. She said, I can't think of my favorite off the top of my head, and still her favorite episode off the top of her head. And she says she's still a new listener. But I love all the information, tips, and resources. I have this in my recent notes that spoke out to me on an episode. So, books, Buy Back Your Time, Rocket Fuel, and The Greatest Salesman in the World. All of those are so, so, so good. I haven't actually read Buy Back Your Time yet, but I just downloaded that. So, Kelsey, you have to tell me what you think about it, and I'll do the same. She wrote, document what you want your personal life to look like and build your business around those goals. These are just like great notes. As I was reading Kelsey's notes, it gave me this idea of, it would just be so neat if all of us rooted in retail listeners shared our notes, our big takeaways from every episode. And if that went somewhere, right now it could just go in the Facebook group. But then we can read what other people's takeaways were, or how they translated it, or how they navigated that situation, or what technology they used to solve that problem, whatever it is. And then we could really learn from each other and just leverage everybody's experiences, because entrepreneurship, running a business can feel really lonely, but there are hundreds of thousands of retailers out there doing it every single day. And you might have really mastered something or figured out something, but you're struggling with something else. And so I just want to make that invitation and open the door to have you come in here, share your notes like Kelsey did, help other people learn from what you're learning, read other people's notes and engage. I just think that there's a lot of potential to this group for us to be there for each other. And that's something that I would love to build. Okay, a couple other things that Kelsey said. I'm not going to read the whole thing in here, but I love that one of her takeaways was be the number one in a 5-mile radius, get active locally, advertise to your primary customer, use your POS to determine your primary customer location. And then also focus on mastering your CPA, which is communication, processes, and accountability, which is so good. Like, what are you doing to hold yourself accountable, to show up, to make sure that you are moving forward? You are where you want to be. You're implementing the things you want to do, holding yourself accountable to your marketing, which you've heard me talk about this a lot. If you've ever heard me speak or you've been listening to the show, marketing can often get put to the back burner. And so how are you being accountable there, showing up there? Make sure you focus on that CPA. That was an excellent reminder. And then of course she said ChatGPT for product descriptions. So I was really happy to see AI on Kelsey's list here. But I would love to know your favorite guest, your favorite show. You can leave it in this graphic in the Facebook group. Just share almost the theme of this, after the show is really about just connecting and community and us sharing, because this is year one and we're just getting started. And as rich as this community is, the better. I'm going to bring it with the guests. I'm going to bring it with the content. I'm going to show up for you. And I would love to hear your side of it, because you are the retailer. You're in it every single day. And so we'd love to hear from you as well. Now, next week's episode is my dear friend and our partner, Susan Nagin at Whizbang Training. I am so excited to have Susan on the show. I actually had her on my other podcast, Crystal Uncorked, and she was a fan favorite. One of her videos went really viral because people were loving what Susan had to say. She's so wise. She's so rooted in retail. And I can't wait for that episode to be out and for you to hear it. I'm just reviewing my notes and I think everything is all set here. Reminder about next week. Just another reminder that we will be going live on Wednesday again instead of Tuesday. So I hope to see you there. I'd love to see you join me live. Give me some feedback, connect with us in the group, and remember that I'm rooting for you. Have a great rest of the week. Okay, bye.